Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday. This is our annual Export Readiness Seminar. So, who's ready to export? So, today we have our session one. I just want to let you know that the annual Export Readiness Seminar is a seminar that's organized by the Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business Development. My name is Paula Isaac. I'm the Economic Development Specialist for International Trade. I welcome all of you joining today to get ready to export. Today we're going to learn on how to export, the ins and outs, the basics. And we have a very special guest today, Miguel Olivares. He's from the U.S. Commercial Service and also called the U.S. Export Assistance Center here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, located right at Port Everglades. And basically he's going to join us today to tell us about exporting one-on-one. So if you're listening to this and you've never exported, or even if you're exporting already, this is going to be a great seminar for you, not only to learn basically the ins and out of exporting, the step by step, not to be intimidated to export, but also some of the programs, resources, and grants that are available to you from the local government, meaning from Broward County, the assistance from us, from the state of Florida with Enterprise Florida, which you'll meet in our third session, and also from the federal government with Miguel's team over at the U.S. Export Assistance Center, but also for export financing, which we'll have on the third session. So let me just give you an overview of what to expect. This is a three-part series. So today on part one, we're going to talk about why exporting is important, why you should start exporting, how do you start, how do you become export ready, how do you find international clients, which everybody wants to know at the end. How do I get the clients, of course? And just really the basics. And we're also going to try to cover doing an export marketing plan. So I'm going to go maybe into a little bit of, I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm going to go over a few slides. Then I'm going to introduce our special guests. Our speakers are going to be yours truly, myself, and Miguel Olivares. But for session two, we're going to be talking about logistics and we're going to be talking about regulations. So we're going to have other special guests joining us in session two, such as Port Everglades and some specialists on regulations. Then on session three is basically where is the money? So we want to know how do we get export financing, because once you get into exporting, and it might be very useful to offer certain payment plans to your clients. So we're going to be talking about export financing in the third part, which is going to be next week. So, but today, without further ado, on this Friday afternoon in sunny South Florida, I'm gonna start with a few slides, give you a little bit of background about why exporting is important. And I know that Miguel is going to back me up and he's going to reiterate why exporting is important. And he's going to go into his presentation where he's going to pretty much give you an overview on how to get started. So I'm going to share my screen now. Let me get you from the beginning. Wonderful. Okay. So welcome again to the Export Readiness Seminar organized by Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business. And we want to get you ready to go global. I know that it's a webinar, and usually we have this seminar live, but usually with a webinar, it's difficult for you to answer me back. But I just wanted to let you know, probably some of you listening are not exporting yet. And then you're wondering, well, how many companies are exporting in the US? Well, you're going to be very surprised. Less than 1% of businesses in the US are exporting, which is a very, very low percentage. So this is why we're doing these webinars. We also have another program that you may know called the 11 Steps to Exporting, your roadmap to your exporting success. And if you're located in Broward County and you call our office, we can get you through the 11 steps to exporting. So why is it important to export? Well, basically, as we all know, the US is a great market for selling your products domestically. But did you know that 95% of the purchasing power is outside of the United States? So this is when you really have to realize, like in the second point here, if we're going through an economic downturn, like we did in 2018, if we're going through a pandemic, or maybe in your industry, the market is saturated, then it's interesting to look at other markets worldwide and see why exporting could be a great alternative for you. Also, if you're a small business listening, I don't want you to be intimidated in exporting because actually 98% of businesses exporting in the US are small businesses. So definitely exporting is for everybody, not just for the large businesses. Also, as you can see, Florida is definitely a gateway to the world. We call ourselves a global gateway. If you look at a map of all the Americas, all the way from Canada to South America, you're really going to see that Florida, and precisely South Florida, where Broward County is located, we really can be a global hub. We're really a gateway to the world. And we have proximity to certain very interesting markets, such as the Caribbean and Latin America, which we're going to talk about later because we're going to talk about how to access international markets. So as well, I just want to show you this slide because why do we care so much about international trade? Why is it so important? Well, as I mentioned before, the strategic geographic location of Broward County. And not many people know that anywhere in Broward County, we can designate as a foreign trade zone, as a duty-free zone, which I'm going to be talking about after Miguel talks. What are the benefits of a foreign trade zone? And that's a great tool that you can use for importing products and then re-exporting. Also, we have easy access to three major seaports and three major airports. Port Everglade is the port here in Broward County, and you're going to hear from them on session 2. So you're going to hear about all the great routes that they serve and how they can assist you with your logistic needs. As well, we have our international airport that is mainly a passenger airport, but that does do as well international trade, and they're here to assist you as well. But just to know, if you look at the whole U.S., the Miami International Airport is leading in the U.S. for air cargo. So just within our region, and Broward County being in the middle, this is a strategic location that you are located. Now, some of you listening are not yet in Broward County. I know I have some international audience, and we welcome you to Broward County. As a matter of fact, at the end of this, I'm going to talk about the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo, which is a great opportunity for you to promote your products here and participate in this conference. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our next guest, Miguel Olivares. He is for us our number one educational trainer on exporting. We're so happy to have him today. I'm going to exit my screen and I'm going to put up his presentation because basically you're going to hear some great things from Miguel. And Miguel, are you with us right now? Okay, great. So Miguel is
Can
having a
you
bit
all
of
hear me?
technical
Can
difficulties.
you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Miguel. Let me see if I can share the
Okay.
screen to have your presentation up.
Okay. All right.
Wonderful. One
All
moment,
right.
please. Great. Here's your screen up, and we can hear you. So welcome, Miguel, to the Export Readiness Seminar. And tell us a little bit about yourself before you start, if you don't mind.
Can,
We can hear you now.
all right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why I'm having technical issues. However, just thank you everybody for being on this seminar. My name is Miguel with the U.S. Commercial Service, which is the export promotion branch of the U.S. government, helping American companies find qualified agents, reps, distributors, and advocating for U.S. businesses overseas is what we do. Let's go over to the next slide. So the U.S. Commercial Service is part of the U.S. Department of Commerce. And as I mentioned before, we are the export promotion branch of the United States companies find qualified international buyers. Now, we all want to export overseas, but we want to know, okay, well, who is the right buyer? And because of the distance, because we're dealing with other countries, we're dealing with other parts of the world, we don't know if a particular buyer is bona fide, is, what their history is, and all. So it's, we're like the eyes and ears for you overseas. And we can find companies that could possibly be a match for you, assuming that the market is there, assuming that there is a demand for your product. And we can tell you all about the potential buyer, whether their company history, their finances. Even if you were to receive an overseas inquiry, we can help you find out a little bit more about that company. So let me go over to the next slide. And so before we even go into exporting, and as Paula alluded to, there's both risks and rewards. The most immediate thing is that you're going to be required to travel, because it's always better to negotiate in person than on the phone. Now, we live right now in the middle of a pandemic, which has curtailed travel. And so we're doing things like video conferencing, okay, which sometimes has technical difficulties, kind of like how I've experienced earlier. But all the same, yes, video conferencing is a method. It's a good method to try to reach buyers. However, many cultures prefer to actually meet in person, to get your vibe, to see you in the flesh. That is what gives the personal connection between people. You'll have to invest in new promotional materials, namely language, change. In Canada, you'll be required to have labeling in both French and in English, and you'll likely have to do some kind of product modification. For example, the US has a 110 volt standard. However, outside the US, it's 220. So these are things that you need to bear in mind. However, the rewards are much, the rewards can be tremendous. You'll have an increase in profits via an increased customer base. It spreads out the business risk. So that way, if, say, your product isn't doing too well here in the United States, it may actually be doing well elsewhere. And by the same token, it can extend the product life cycle. And this is particularly effective for seasonal goods, because if you have something that's geared for the springtime or the summer, well, just wait a few months and it'll be spring and summer in the Southern Hemisphere. Let's go over to the next slide. So one of the things is if you are export ready, and these are some of the things that you want to ask yourself. Is your product selling here in the United States? And my motto is, if you're already selling here, then you can sell over there. If you're not selling in the United States, somebody is going to ask you overseas you're not selling overseas. So it's critically important to have that domestic market. And can your company commit to a sufficient production capacity to the export market? You may be running into a distributor who wants an X amount of product per month, and he or she is going to rely on you to be an effective supplier of that product. Do you have the financial resources to actively support an international marketing strategy? In other words, can you travel? Do you have the money to market overseas and support your distributors? And so one of the other things I wanted to just set reasonable expectations. I speak with a lot of companies, and when I ask them, well, where's your market? Well, I want to go to Latin America and I want to go to Asia. Okay, well, there's a lot of countries within Latin America and within Asia. So let's be a little bit more specific here. And I advise people to tackle no more than 2 countries at a given time. There's nothing wrong with having a grand vision to get more than 2 countries to tackle a whole region. However, everybody has their own bandwidth, and every market is different and is going to take time to develop. So when you tackle countries, just set reasonable expectations. Make sure that you're only doing 2 at any one time. And also make sure you're seeing the right people. Know why you're there. Have a sensible schedule and take into account traffic. I come from Los Angeles, which is choked in traffic, and you can only get about 2 meetings a day there. So if you're going to another country, have a look at their traffic and plan accordingly. You may have to extend your stay to accommodate that. Work with the local business culture. As I said, modify your products if necessary, and pay attention to local business norms. Finally, have a financial cushion. When you go out to export, be prepared for your trips to be either a success or a bust. Just be prepared about that. So I'm going over to the next slide. The U.S. Commercial Service, my agency, we have a number of resources to help you hone your export skills. And we can give you an export process overview, which is an online assessment for you. And it's talk about what to expect in the export process. And the links are all live there. A good export plan to describe the steps necessary for your company to develop sales. We have online tools, sample plans, and also videos that you can download on the link. I also recommend looking at Export U, which is a partner resource, and it's a series of lectures about exporting. And also there's the Basic Guide to Exporting, which is a free downloadable manual for exporters, and it's published every few years by us, the U.S. Commercial Service. And one thing I will say about the Basic Guide to Exporting is I took international trade when I was at university, and we had a bunch of stacked books of, books and all. And then I discovered one of the first editions of the Basic Guide to Exporting, and I did not need all those books. I just honed all my attention to the Basic Guide to Exporting, and that pretty much answered just about anything I needed. So I'm putting in that plug because I personally used it, and I highly recommend that you do as well. So let's move on. International market research. So once you've established that you're export ready and going overseas, the question is, okay, where? And this itself needs some research on your part. And we have things like country commercial guides. So you can research by country, market conditions, regulations, customs. And there's the whole gamut of information that's downloadable absolutely free of charge. And I've got the link over there for you. Now, do we have it for every country? No, but we have it for the larger markets. So you're going to find market research on things like South Africa, China, Canada, Mexico. Some of the smaller countries are going to have less information because it's not a large market. You could also look at industry research. So if you're in the aerospace, healthcare, IT industry, click on that link, check out those market intelligence reports, and they will give you a little synopsis of what the market is like in a given country for your industry. Another thing, particularly if anybody's starting out, is I highly recommend looking at countries where we have free trade agreements. And why? And the reason is because a free trade agreement lowers trading barriers. It lowers tariffs, which means that your product is competitive with a similar product made in the home country. So if you're exporting to Mexico, let's say, because we have a free trade agreement with Mexico, and you're exporting, and I'm just going to use pens, something that you write on as an arbitrary example, and you're exporting over there to Mexico. Mexico also has an industry that produces their own pens. Well, your products are going to be cost competitive with the Mexican ones because of the free trade agreement. It may be a little bit more expensive because you always have to ship those pens. But the fact is that the product itself would be cost competitive. If you were to go to a country where we do not have a free trade agreement, that product will be charged duties and tariffs, which will elevate the cost to the consumer. So again, it's something to think about. Look at the countries where we have free trade agreements. Another thing is a customized service, and we call it an initial market check. And what this does is gather feedback from up to 5 industry participants and give you written recommendations on whether to pursue the market or not. So if you're in that healthcare industry and you're interested in going to, say, Colombia, all right, whatever that product is that you're selling, we can identify Colombian businesses that are doing something similar, that are involved in that industry, get feedback from them, and identify whether or not this may be a good fit for you. Now, in my university days, they called this primary research, and that's exactly what this is, because you're hearing about your product's receptivity right from the very consumers who may be interested in it. So let me go over to the next slide. And by the way, it's stormy where I am, so I hope I don't lose you. So anyway, so let's talk about finding buyers and partners. And this is the real gist of what we do. And I'm going to start up with our flagship Gold Key service, which in a nutshell is one-on-one meetings between you and potential partners. We identify folks who would be interested in meeting with you, and we set up scheduled meetings. In pre-COVID days, this required you to travel, and you would go from one meeting to the next meeting to the next. You will know well ahead of time who you're meeting with. They know all about you. You know all about them. This is as warm a lead as you can get. We also have an international partner search, which is very similar, only there are no meetings scheduled. And we also do, again, this is because of the COVID situation and people are doing video links now, is we'll set up video introductions between you and potential buyers. Again, you will know all about them. You will know their company, their history, who you're meeting with, and their product reach or their distributor reach before you actually meet with them. And these meetings, again, you know why you're there, they know why you're there too. We also do trade shows and trade missions, and we encourage you to take a look at them. Enterprise Florida, the state agency, also does a number of trade missions. And you may want to think about joining one of these missions and where you will meet potential buyers. And let me go to the next slide. Oops, sorry there. We also have e-commerce resources. So you have questions about e-commerce, SEO, cybersecurity. You can click on the link over there and take a look at what we have. There's also due diligence. I mentioned earlier, if you received an inquiry from a potential buyer somewhere, but you're not sure about the company, you don't, what are they really up to? Are they legitimate or not? We can help you find out if they are, and do a background check. There's also intellectual property. There's government agencies that are tasked with protecting IP, and you may want to visit them, particularly if you're sensitive about your intellectual property. And there's also compliance. Now, you may frequently hear about companies requiring an export license. And I'm here to tell you that the vast majority of products do not require an export license. However, if your product has a potential national security component to it, yes, you're going to need a license for it. If you're not sure, go ahead and apply for a license anyway. It's always better to do this than get a knock on the door. But if you're selling things like cosmetics, you're going to be okay. If you're doing something a little more high tech, check it out. You may want to just go ahead and apply for a license anyway. There's no cost to doing that. And moving on to the next slide. So how do you work with us? Well, your product has to be at least 51% U.S. content. We are a U.S. government agency. We're funded by taxpayers, so we have to assist American companies and the American economy. So how we measure that is that if you're headquartered here, admin, your customer services here, your research and development, warehouse ship from here, and as I put there, the majority of the business operations must be within the United States. That's what we really look at. And we also recommend that you be consistent and proactive. We need to hear from you. As I mentioned, focus on no more than 2 countries at a given time, and to set reasonable expectations. Sales are not made overnight. And let me just go to here, which is the next slide, if you want to be a broker. And I will tell you that being a broker it's increasingly difficult. And that is because companies will want to, or potential buyers will want to go straight to the manufacturer. However, there's still, you can still carve a niche for yourself if you want to go that route. Here are some basic rules for aspiring brokers. And one thing, specialize in a product range or industry, because it's much better to be knowledgeable about an industry and speak with authority than try to represent everything and be a master of none. It's kind of like throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. That approach doesn't work. You want to make sure that you know what you're talking about, you know the industry, and that gives you a sense of authority when you approach either a potential supplier or even a buyer. The other thing is to attend industry trade shows. There are convention centers in Orlando, here in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and you could take a look at what their schedule is and see what industry trade shows are there. If there's an interest for you, if you're interested in automotive, take a look and see if there's an automotive show. Aviation, plastics, manufacturing. Check out the calendar to see what the trade shows are there. And another thing about trade shows is not only will you be able to meet potential suppliers, but they also have seminars about the industry. And many times people will attend these seminars to be up to speed on an industry. Also, have a solid agreement with your supplier. Will your supplier defer to you if they receive an inquiry from overseas? So if you're supplying widgets to, say, the Dominican Republic, and then there's a buyer in the DR who's going over to the manufacturer, circumventing you, does the manufacturer have your back? Will the manufacturer defer back to you? I've seen it happen where people will be sidelined. So be honest enough to walk away from a bad deal. If it just doesn't look like it's going to work, don't do it. And this is related to competing against or have an agreement with your supplier, is never compete with your supplier. Just don't do it, because your supplier will always be able to sell for less than you can. So be wary about that. And also be wary about the dumping ground. And that is just selling a bad product. Customers today have access to reviews. They can compare similar products online. We all do it. I do it, and people overseas will do the exact same thing. So I want to touch a bit about the limitations, and this is commodities. So things like oil and steel. And a commodity is a basic good that's interchangeable with other goods of the same type. Like I said, if they're steel, grains, they're all subject to daily price fluctuations. And this is why we do not work with them, because there's little to differentiate one commodity from another. So I have here that a barrel of oil is basically the same product regardless of the producer. Just like steel is pretty much steel regardless of the producer. So it's a very difficult path to navigate. And that is why we work more on completed products and services. And so here's my contact information. I also have up above my email. And I highly recommend that you reach out to me via email. I'm be happy to engage you and talk to you, answer any of your questions, talk about potential markets, and see what you'd like to do and what you're interested in. Anyway, and that's what I have. Thank you all very much.
All right, Miguel, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great. Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I put up your last slide, which is the slide about your contact information. And we're going to be able, can we share this presentation with the audience? Miguel, can you hear me now? So we've shared this presentation we're going to share this presentation with the audience. And what I would like to do is I just like to kind of continue a little bit the program. I have a few slides that I want to present as well. And then what I like to do is, because I think we're going to finish earlier today than with other sessions where we have more speakers, I would like to have a candid interview with Miguel at the end. Just basically talk about some of the things he spoke about in his presentation and kind of, go more into deeper into some of these points. But before we do that, I'm going to take out his
Of
presentation and
course.
share my screen. And was very valuable information that you shared right there, Miguel. So we're very appreciative that you're with us today. And I'm going to jump into, there's some of the stuff that you already covered, but I kind of want to give a little bit our perspective here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to, on the current slide. Great. All right. So now I know this was taken actually. I just want to let everybody know that we have another program, which a lot of you are aware, called the 11 Steps to Exporting. And today, the reason why we're doing the three-part export readiness seminar is because everybody asks me, well, Paula, how do I become export ready? So, so in the 11 steps to exporting, we just covered it on step one. We say you have to become export ready. And then in this seminar that we're having in three parts, we're really educating the community on how to become export ready. But a lot of people are still not sure, why, how to become export ready, why not. And when Miguel was talking, I was taking notes because there's a lot of great websites out there. One of them is actually their website called export.gov. And I don't know if they updated the website. I think it was about a year or so ago. I don't know if they still have this on their website, but I found there a very interesting questionnaire to kind of see, to kind of determine if you're export ready. And a lot of the companies that are listening, they're probably just focused on the domestic market, but that's actually a good thing. It's actually a good step in becoming export ready. So the first question, which I've taken from this questionnaire from export.gov, is, does your company have a product or services that has been successfully sold in the domestic market? So, I talk to a lot of companies, and sometimes they haven't started yet. They're more like entrepreneurs or they're startups. So they haven't really had the way of the land in the local market, in the domestic market. So it's not that you cannot start exporting that way, but it definitely helps tremendously if you have some success in the domestic market, because you really kind of tested your product, if it's with the US market, if it's sold here, your pricing, your shipping, everything. So it's I think it's important that in the domestic market you have some traction already. And also because the reason is just for us to refer companies to the US Export Assistance Center, they have to be export ready. Because as Miguel mentioned, the program called the Gold Key program, where they can really match you with your dream customers, we cannot go ahead and match you with your dream customers if you're not export ready, because it's not going to be a benefit to you, and it's not going to be a benefit to your customer, and also us as different agencies trying to help you. We want to make sure you succeed. So you have to really be ready. You have to really know if you can sell your product, what are the regulations in the other markets, what pricing are you going to have in that market, because you're going to get all these questions straight on from the international buyer. So now going to question two, does your company have, or is your company preparing an international marketing plan? So this is actually when we do the 11 steps to exporting, that is actually step two. And Miguel briefly touched upon it. And having an export plan is not mandatory, but it's really useful. And there's different ways that you can get an export plan. So there is actually a program where we partner with Enterprise Florida. It's offered by Enterprise Florida in collaboration with SBDC. And it's an export plan grant. And I'm going to talk about it I'm just going to go over the questions, but I want to talk to you about that a little bit later, because you may be able to qualify And then the SBDC can actually do a full-fledged export marketing plan for you and also recommend some markets that would be good for you to export. But if you don't qualify for the program, there's still other alternatives. I can send you an export marketing plan sample that you can start working on, and then we can have a conference call and work on it. In order to for us to work one-on-one, the company has to be located in Broward County. But if it's not with me, then I can definitely refer you to the agency in your county. Maybe you're located in Miami-Dade County. Maybe you're somewhere else in Florida, so you can work with Enterprise Florida. So not to worry, no need to worry. But I know a lot of you listening are here in Broward County, and I can work with you one-on-one on your export plan. Number three, does your company have sufficient production capacity or can be committed to the export market? So that's important because let's say you do take part of the Gold Key program and then you get a big customer like Walmart Mexico. So now in that case, you have to be ready with the capacity. You have to have a way that you can increase the capacity for certain markets. You know, we sometimes talk to huge markets like India and China. Imagine there, the quantity that they may ask may be very large. So you just have to plan for that, and I think that's an important point in knowing if you can become export ready. Number four, does your company have the financial resources to actively support the marketing of your product in the targeted overseas markets? So, we always tell companies, in addition to having an export plan, you should also have an export budget because definitely not to discourage the small businesses, but you're going to need a certain budget to adapt your product, the packaging, and also for travel expenses because as Miguel mentioned in his presentation, nothing beats having one-on-one meetings in person. So you might have to travel on a trade mission, or you might have to make a trip to that country definitely to meet with your buyers. So definitely that's something to consider when you're looking into going into international markets. Number five, is your company management committed to developing export markets and willing and able to dedicate staff, time, and resources to the process? Well, basically, some of you that may be listening, you might not be the CEO or the management of your company. So it's definitely important to get the commitment from your management to understand the importance of exporting, why it would be applicable to your business model, and then definitely have the support from your management. That's really key. And now also, let's see, number six now, is your company committed to providing the same level of service given to your domestic customers? So obviously that's kind of an obvious point but it can be overwhelming. Sometimes, you're trying to deal with the domestic market, going international market, and you do want to provide the same level of service. You don't want yourself to go to an international market and then that's impacting your level of service locally. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Number seven, does your company have adequate knowledge in modifying product packaging and ingredients to meet the foreign import regulations and cultural preferences? Now, in part two, we're going to talk about foreign regulations. And definitely packaging is, for those of you listening that have a product that have a packaging, this could be important when you're going into international markets. For example, as Miguel mentioned as well in his presentation, that in Canada, in certain province, you need to have the packaging in two languages, in English and in French. Actually, in the province of Quebec, the main language is French. So same goes for other countries and that speak other languages, or electrical requirements and ingredients, the way they're listed, the way the metric system is different in other countries. So those are things to consider. Number eight, does your company have adequate knowledge in shipping its product overseas, such as identifying and selecting international freight forwarders and freight costing? So that's again a topic we're going to cover in part two, and you'll hear from Port Everglades, from logistics specialists, and then you'll understand, you need to know the basics. What's an HS code? What is an Incoterm? And we're not going to talk about it today, but you'll learn about it in part two. And those are things that you need to familiarize yourself to become export ready. Number 9, does your company have adequate knowledge of export payment mechanism, such as developing and negotiating letters of credits? So again, this is a topic we're going to cover in part 3, where we're going to talk about methods of payment and as well export financing and even cover letters of credit, because in certain markets, they do use letters of credits as a way of, as a method of payment. So that's why we're having this 3-part seminar and actually a webinar this year, because we really want you to understand the vocabulary, the language, and familiarize yourself on things you're going to get questions from your buyers, from your international buyers. So those are important things to become export ready. I do want to talk a little bit about the export plan that I was mentioning earlier. I want to mention that there is a grant available from Enterprise Florida. And the good news is we're going to have Enterprise Florida in our part 3 session. And we're going to have John Dieppe, who's going to talk about the grant programs. And this is one of the programs that they offer. So in order for the SBDC, like I mentioned before, and the SBDC is the Small Business Development Centers, federal agency all across the US, but we do have a presence here in South Florida. They're the one who actually implement the export marketing plan for you. They write it up. It could be up to 100 pages. And they do a presentation at the end where they also invite the US Export Assistance Center to be present and Enterprise Florida. But there are certain qualifications if you want to take advantage of this program. First of all, you have to be a Florida manufacturer or offer a professional service here in the state of Florida. Secondly, your products must be, if you're producing a product, it has to be manufactured or produced in the state of Florida. In addition, your company's product must be at least 51% US content. And for this program, it's usually was created for new to export businesses or infrequent exporters. But if you export a little bit more than that, definitely that's something we can discuss. And then you have to have a minimum of 2 years in business. This is where it becomes a little bit difficult for the new businesses or the smaller businesses. But you do have to have a minimum of 2 years in business. You have to have at least five employees or more. You have to make annual sales of 500,000 to 10 million. So why do they ask these requirements? Again, like I mentioned before, if you're proven in the domestic market, you have a good website, you do these amounts of sales a year, and you have at least five employees, technically, you're considered doing pretty well in the domestic market as a start, and you could qualify for this program. And the cost to qualify, there is a small cost because they want you to put some skin in the game, is $500. But the actual grant that Enterprise Florida offers is like up to $4,000. So definitely a really worthwhile program. If you qualify, you can reach out to our offices, or you can also reach out to Enterprise Florida that you're going to meet in session 3. And definitely, we'd love to help you take advantage of this grant. But like I said before, if you don't fulfill these requirements, do not worry, because we can provide you an export plan, and then we can review it together again. If you're based in Broward County, I can meet with you one-on-one, and we can go over how to structure it. We won't be doing the export plan for you, but we can assist you in definitely in structuring it and review it with you. So now I know that Miguel covered on this, and he covered especially what's so exciting is I had so many companies use the Gold Key program, and they really get to meet like customers that it would have been difficult for them to set up the meeting. But basically, a lot of you listening, they're like, well, really, our key here is we want to find the international opportunities. How do we find the international opportunities? So our office, in addition to these educational webinar and seminars and workshop that we put about the technicalities on how to export, we also offer other series. And one series is called Doing Business with the World. And I know some of you listening have participated in some of our previous ones. We had some great ones this year. We did Jamaica, Ecuador. We just recently did Trinidad and Tobago and Malaysia. And we're going to have other ones coming up. So those are great ways to meet with the investment agencies, the trade agencies, and we partner with the consulates and to provide what are the best business opportunities in their country, what sectors that you can find opportunities. Another way to look into this is, and Miguel mentioned it in his presentation, is the country commercial guides. So again, on export.gov, which is to me is like the number one website to get a lot of great resources and assistance for exporting. You could look for what's called a country commercial guide, and those are made by the foreign offices from the U.S. Commercial Service that are based in embassies around the world, and they do the research for you. They find out what are the best prospects, what are the best sectors to export in that market. So it's a great way to familiarize yourself. And if you're interested in a special market, let's say the UK or a market in Africa, then you can see what are the best products that I can export there, you know? And as well, it talks about the regulation, so you can start familiarizing yourself on the basics for regulations. So those are some ways of doing some research to find an international client. Other ways to do so is with trade missions. So there's two types of trade missions. There's inbound trade missions and outbound trade missions. With the inbound trade missions, we bring delegations here. So unfortunately, now due to COVID, it was difficult to bring delegations here. But the good news is we're going to start bringing them again. And where are we bringing all the delegations? Is at the conference, the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo on November 17 and 18, which I'm going to talk to you in a little bit. And that's where basically we bring all our contacts from all over the world. But throughout the year, once we're going to start doing again more events, workshops live, we host them throughout the county. We can invite as well an international delegations that you can meet one-on-one. Again, nothing beats meeting your client face to face. I know that nowadays it's great that we have technology, we have virtual capabilities, but meeting them face to face is still really, I find, is one of the best ways to close a sale, or at least to create those strategic relationships around the world. The other type of trade mission that exists is the outbound trade mission. So basically, it's when we travel to another country. And as Miguel mentioned earlier as well, he talked about Enterprise Florida, which we're going to learn about in the third session. And they organize international trade missions. And the county has invited local businesses, and we've participated along with our mayors in many of those trade missions. So we've been to Colombia, we've been to Dominican Republic, Peru, Chile. We've been on countless trade missions with Enterprise Florida, and let me tell you, they're very valuable. Why are they valuable? Because if you qualify, some of you can participate in the Gold Key program. So you come along with us on the trade mission, and then you do your Gold Key meetings over there, plus all the other meetings that are set up by the state and the county. Or even if you don't qualify for the Gold Key, it's still beneficial because the county sets up our own meetings with chambers of commerce, trade agency there, contacts and buyers, and then we invite the companies to participate with us on these strategic meetings. So definitely these international trade missions are very valuable. We really look forward to hosting more in the future. We're hoping next year by March, hopefully, if things get better, we'd look to organize a trade mission to Dubai and the UAE. So we'd love to invite you, and we're definitely going to have an announcement. We'll do an event called a webinar or even a workshop called Doing Business with Dubai prior. So we'll announce. But these trade missions definitely have to be approved first by the county. So we go through the justification process. And then once they're approved and they're valuable for the businesses that we invite, then we definitely extend the invitation to participate with us. And whether it's organized by the state or the county, we can always offer the Gold Key program. So I can work directly with Miguel and their offices over there, and if they can set up some Gold Key appointments for us. So those are basically the ways of getting international opportunities. But that brings me to one of the best ways, which is what I mentioned earlier, the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo, FITSE. So FITSE, we didn't have FITSE in 2020 due to COVID, but this year we're going to have it live in person at the Broward County Convention Center on November 17 and 18. And we just recently opened a few days ago the exhibitor portal. So if you're looking to have an exhibit table, we had the first 50 tables that were available were at $50 only. And now today, as of today, I'm at 46 tables sold. So soon it's going to go up to the next price, which is $100 per table, which I still find is a great way for you to promote your products and services. You would be part of a World Expo that we're going to have. The World Expo has 300 exhibitors. Half of them are local, half of them are international, or consulates or binational chambers of commerce. So, in addition to that, we're inviting 60 countries to participate that will be represented at the conference already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the website at the end. Already, we have 4 former presidents that are confirmed to come. We have the former president of Uruguay, former president of Costa Rica, former president of Bolivia, and the former president of, I think today I'm actually confirming another one, Ecuador. That's why there's so many, I lose track of them. There's Costa Rica and Guatemala. So we're going to have these former presidents as our guest of honor, but also we have other key guests, key dignitaries coming, ministers from different countries, mayors. We actually have even new delegations coming this year. I have a delegation coming from Dubai with some sheikhs. So it's going to be really interesting to bring here some international investors, international buyers for us, you know. And if you want to see the countries that are participating, you can go to our website. And the website, which I'm going to put at the end, I'm going to show you where the website, I'm actually going to show you the website because I can share my screen. But the website is fitcexpo.com. So the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo is referred to as FITSE, the first letters of each word in the event. So it's FITCE, FITSE. And then our website is very easy. It's fitcexpo.com. However, there's only one E. So FITC, the word expo.com. But I'm going to share that at the end and I'll show you our website so you can see a little bit more information on it. But I thought it was important to cover today on how to find international opportunities because that's really key. Miguel has really great tools that you can take advantage of. So we definitely look forward to working with you, the companies listening, to see if you qualify for these programs. In addition to that, one thing I haven't mentioned is actually trade shows. And Enterprise Florida, as well with the U.S. Commercial Services, participate in many specific industry trade shows around the world. For example, the Dubai Air Show. There's marine shows all over the world. There's health shows. So depending on your industries, let us know. We can let you know what is an international trade show to attend. And those are also great ways to meet international buyers. There's also actually, I think he mentioned the International Buyers Program as well. So all these great programs, if it's, we don't want to overwhelm you on this webinar, you can always reach out to our office. I'm going to put my contact information and I will be sending as well the presentations and our contact information by email to if you've registered so that you can contact us after this webinar. So now, I just want to mention a little bit about finding international opportunities. Because when you look at a market, you're trying to see, okay, which market should I really dig into, really make part of my export plan. So I do my research and I see if there's a market potential there. There's a few points that you need to look at. If you're new to exporting, looking for an international country where there's a free trade agreement is definitely an advantage because you're going to have an advantage in terms of competitiveness and pricing. You don't have to add on an import tariff to your pricing, which is very good. So that's a good market to start with. Also, a market that has English as a first language. Maybe then you don't have to modify yet your packaging. You can do a good test in a foreign market where English is the main language. Also, looking at a market that's similar to where you're selling already. We're looking here at the slide as income distribution, market growth potential, market accessibility, and especially economic stability, or political stability. So just as first-time exporters or infrequent exporters, we definitely recommend to, get some practice in those types of markets. Not that you cannot go into the other markets, it's just to make it easy and as a good test run for your products. In addition to that, let me see. Miguel talked about those, but we have the free trade agreements. So they're listed right here, and actually, there's the something called the FTA tariff tool, and I think that's going to be covered in part two because what's great again about that website export.gov is that they have tools there, and one of their tools is called the FTA tariff tool. And then you can really make sure that if you're trading with those markets, your tariff is zero or it has rolled out to be zero. So that's another great tool, and then we're going to cover that more in the part two of our seminar. And I want to talk a little bit about that. I don't remember if Miguel had an opportunity to talk about it, but protecting your intellectual property, that's something that the U.S. Export Assistance and U.S. Commercial Service, they do a really great job at that, because they want to help you make sure that you can protect your patents and that you can protect your patent, your copyrights, your trademarks in other markets. That's very important. Just to take into consideration, I'm not going to go over it too much, that basically whatever you have protected here in the US is not applicable in another country. So you do have to register your trademark, your patents, and your intellectual properties in other markets. But luckily, there's treaties that have been done between countries, like the Paris Convention Treaty, and that helps you apply to multiple countries at once. And there is also some tools in that can be useful. We're not going to go about into it too much today, but that's something that you can contact our office or us in order to be able to protect your intellectual property. Let me see if I can go to some of our next slide. Well, basically, I wanted to cover these main points. And one thing that I would like to do, because I know we're going to finish early today, is I want to bring back Miguel. And I want to ask him just some questions. He has so much experience working with exporters. And we're going to be a little bit candid today. And I'm going to ask him and see, like, how does he, what is he seeing happening right now, especially with the pandemic going on, is how is it to work with exporters and how's it been changing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit this shared screen. Stop sharing. Okay. And now I'm back to you guys. And I'm going to just check. Miguel, are you with us? You. We can hear you, Miguel.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Um, so basically, when I'm going to be talking, if you could stay on mute and vice versa, I'm just going to kind of have like, because we finished a little bit early today, I was thinking we could just have like kind of a little conversation, you and I, for the audience, and
Sure.
talk a little bit about about us working with businesses, having maybe would have to give specific examples, but I know we work with countless businesses. And before I go into that, I just want to mention to the audience that our collaboration has been really great over the years. And thanks to Department of Commerce and also to your assistant, specifically Miguel, our office received the President's E Award. And maybe you can tell us, why don't you tell us a little bit about the President's E Award and who does it, how is it started by President Kennedy and how we qualified to participate.
Sure. Thanks, Paula. So as you mentioned, the Presidency Award was started by President Kennedy back in 1961, and it was meant to award exporters who have had 5 years of consistent sales, and also those who promote exporting. and it's awarded to about 10, maybe 15 companies per year. There's a ceremony in Washington, D.C. where they do it, obviously in a pre-COVID area. Um, and so the Broward Office of Economic Development is, through Paula, very export driven. And we've been doing things for well over 5 years. And I remember a conversation with you going, you should apply for this. I think you're going to get it. And lo and behold, you did, and you were awarded the Presidential E-Award on full merit and justifiably so. And that is something to be very proud of, because you can not only can you say that you've won this, that few companies and few associations ever do, but you can tell that to all your partners, sister city organizations. And the same thing is true for companies. If you're awarded the Presidential Award, that is something that you can tell your distributors. In fact, sometimes you're given flags and pins that you can disseminate to your distributors overseas. So that way you're all part of this. It's not just the company, the US company based here, but it's a team effort involving a company's distributors. And I've seen that several times. People award their distributors because they know that without them, the company will not be able to export as well as they do. So it's very good to aspire to.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Definitely not an easy award to achieve and to get, and it was very prestigious. And thank you so much. I know you were instrumental in nominating us, and we did go to DC and we received it. Usually in the past, that's when it was President Kennedy and other presidents moving forward, it was actually the President of the United States presenting the certificate. And in this case,
Right.
Under President Trump administration, we had the Secretary of Commerce, Wilbur Ross, and the Undersecretary of International Trade, which definitely, again, that was a great honor. And we met other government EDOs, and we met also other companies from other states in the US that were honored along us. And I know that one of our own Broward companies, can you mention that? Because
Yes.
one of our own Broward companies received the award, EcoTab.
Right. And so this is a company that I've been working with for a few years. And they established distributors in South Africa, France, Australia, New Zealand, Turkey, and like 2 or 3 other places. And what they did also is they have their home page, their US site, but they also allowed their distributors to create their own websites, which is uniquely tailored for that market. So their French site is entirely, I'm sorry, let me take that. Their site in France, their distributors in France have a French website. Everything is in French, and it's tailored to the French market. The address is an address in France, but that's because that's where the distributor is located. And they do the same thing for South Africa and for Australia. And that kind of leads me to one thing. If I can go on a different tangent here, for those of you who are looking at doing the distributor model, give them some flexibility on how to tailor their website so that it's appropriate for that country. And that's what EcoTabs did. And other countries do, or companies rather, do that as well. So that's something to think about. And of course, it's all connected to the mother website, which is in the US. yeah, they did very well for themselves, and they also won the award justifiably so.
That's wonderful, Miguel. And not to put you on the spot, but if you want to share your open your camera, it's up to you. Or if I know that you mentioned that there was a storm where you are, and we actually heard it. But the sound has been great. So thank you again for all your input. I wanted to ask you as
Oh,
well.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Knowing that you've dealt with so many countries around the world, which one has been a country that has been like challenging, that you've dealt with one of your clients?
I it it varies. I One of the challenging markets is Brazil, and that's because they have a high duty tariff schedule. A product exported to Brazil can literally cost the consumer 3 or 4 times the amount over there than it would here in the United States. If we had a free trade agreement with Brazil, then it would just be the shipping costs. Um, that's that's a challenging market because um, your goods, if a company wants to sell over there, there very well may be a Brazilian company doing something similar, and they're going to have to compete against that. Um, there's other markets that present different challenges. China and intellectual property is a major factor there. There's a chance about having your products copied, which means that you need to take the extra step and protect your intellectual property. And there's also other markets, like in Russia, for example. There may or may not be such receptivity for U.S. products, and that's we can look at the world situation, and that could be the reason why. As a matter of fact, we had an office there in Moscow, and it was reduced. Um, we're not the ones who ordered the reduction; the Russian government did, and we had to comply. That's just the way it works overseas. Um, but I always look to see for companies where they can gain the most bang for the buck. Um, Colombia and El Salvador have two where we have free trade agreements with both. However, one market is sizably different than the other, and if you're going to put in the effort to exporting, look at where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Unless you have a personal connection with another country.
Those are very, very valuable insights that you're providing. And I wanted to know, can you talk a little bit? I know you cover certain sectors yourself. How is your
Mhm.
office structured here at Port Everglades? And I know some other sectors are covered at the office in Miami. Can you talk a little?
Sure. So we have several people within our Fort Lauderdale and Miami offices. We commonly refer to ourselves as Commercial Service South Florida, and we all divide each other by different industry sectors. And the reason why we do that is from what I spoke earlier about the broker, that you understand the industry, you can speak the language, and you understand it to the point where you can interact with companies and speak their language. So what to say? So I cover healthcare, I cover environmental, which has to deal a lot with wastewater, renewable energy, consumer goods, additive manufacturing. Another one of my colleagues covers the marine sector. There's another one that covers aviation, IT, cosmetics, and another one does education and training, textiles, So we have these specialties, and I made, because we're here doing this webinar, we can, happy to speak with anybody here who's willing. Yet your industry could fall into one of my colleagues, and I would make that reference. So, but we all do the same thing, and our colleagues overseas are also divided up between industry sectors for the same reason we are. And so if somebody's working with me on healthcare, I'm going to reach out to a healthcare colleague overseas. And so that's how we do it. If you want to look further, you can click on commercial or Google commercial service teams, and you will see all our team sectors, which aligns with our industries.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's great that you're separated by sectors because it makes you really true specialists. And I was wondering, since you're covering, for example, the healthcare sectors, I was wondering, yes, can you hear me? I know you're having some issues with the weather there where you are, but can you hear me, Miguel? Oh, maybe you have some problems with your speakers. Can you hear me now?
Oh, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I know it's a challenge because we heard
Yes, I can hear
there was
you.
thunderstorms there was thunderstorms where you were, so I definitely
Sorry about,
understand
yes, of
the
course.
challenge
Yes, I
with the
can.
weather and the internet connection. Okay, great. I wanted to ask you, Miguel, since you cover the healthcare sector, and I know we have many sectors listening, but have you seen what are some of the products that your customers are exporting around the world?
The healthcare sector is highly variant. You have everything from exporting needles, gloves, all the way to barometric chambers, which is an oxygen pressure chamber. And so it runs a gamut. However, some of the more unique items that can detect things like cancer or any like skincare, anything like that, there is a market abroad for these items. So they're either products that can be $5 or anywhere up to 500,000, but it is a growing market. It is something that people are keen on. People trust U.S. made healthcare products. It carries quality. There's a prestige about U.S. healthcare products, and for anybody who's in that space, let's talk. Let's see where you're selling to already, and where you would like to sell eventually, or where you have your eyes on. But it is a growing market, and Enterprise Florida, the state economic development agency, has also prioritized healthcare along with things like automotive and aviation. But yeah, healthcare is a hot market right now.
Staying a little bit on the topic of healthcare, did you see maybe with the Gold Key program or with some of your clients, some of them were selling possibly to hospitals? And is it different when it's like a hospital that's run by a government, like in certain countries like Italy, for example, or Canada, it's the government running the hospital versus, in other countries where the hospitals are privatized? Have you seen that happen with some of your clients where they had to deal with these different formats of hospitals?
Actually, the the hospitals themselves not a large client base, and one would think otherwise, but the hospitals themselves get their supplies from other sources. So, if we're looking again at a distributor, they can supply the local hospitals. Now, yes, there are cases where we do sell to either a private hospital or a government municipal hospital, and the layers to get to the ultimate decision maker are less with the private than they are with the municipal. It's just easier to deal with a private hospital. However, if you're looking to, um, if say a healthcare company is looking to go to a country, we could take a look at the hospital, but in all likelihood, the an agent, a rep, or a distributor is going to get you to market faster than going to a hospital. So, um, and may I just also say that there's a similar dynamic with municipal wastewater or anything dealing with that. And the reason is because you can have, say, a private company. Let's say, some resort has their own wastewater capacity. It's easier to deal with that than it would be with, say, a city municipality. And that's just because there are different layers. There's nothing against that. The municipality market is obviously larger than the resort, but in a similar manner with the hospital, um, it takes a little more effort, let's say.
No, it's interesting to make that differentiation. So thank you for noting that. You also mentioned, and I talked about it as well, that one way to meet international clients is to attend these sectorial trade shows. And I know you've attended either in these sectors you covered or in past sectors you've covered. You attended a lot of trade shows. Can you talk about some of those trade shows and how effective?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I mean, it's actually where I began my career, was doing the trade show circuit. And there's a trade show for just about anything. There's trade shows for automotive, for aviation. The Palm Beach, no, I'm sorry, Miami Beach recently had FEMA, the Florida International Medical Expo, at the start of this month. And there's the thing about industry trade shows is that it's not only where people can showcase their products and their services. That's the first visual thing that you see at a trade show. But it's also where you can go to learn about the latest trends and the latest technologies within that sector. Most trade shows have conferences within them where you can attend these classroom sessions. And oftentimes people are required to attend these conferences, so that way the company can keep up to speed with latest trends. This is especially true when you're talking about communication or information technology, those kinds of shows. So for somebody who is in a certain industry space, a trade show is a wonderful way to connect with other people in that space, to learn about the latest trends in that space, and also to meet potential buyers. And that's ultimately what people are there for. Our agency has brought delegations to domestic trade shows, and the delegations, they've gone from one company to the next, seeing what's available. And in today's world, um, every trade show is different. The organizers are different. But in today's world, you could pretty much look up exhibitors before you travel. So it's good to have that there. But I recommend trade shows. Definitely pay a visit to them, especially if somebody is interested in being a broker. It's like going to a mini university. You will learn so much by going to a trade show.
Definitely, I agree with you that those trade shows are wonderful opportunity not only to meet clients, and you can invite your own clients to meet
Mhm.
you at a trade show. You can let them know where your booth is, and it makes a good impression on the clients. Another question I had for you, Miguel, is you mentioned the importance of having a great website. I know that when I work with you and businesses that have exported in the domestic market, they seem to be export ready, but they don't always have a great website. Can you comment on that, the importance of having a good website and how that impacts your export business?
Yes, of course. So just to backtrack a bit about meeting buyers at trade shows, oftentimes distributors will go visit a trade show, and it will be at that trade show venue where a company will physically meet up with their distributor. So again, it's to your earlier point. So websites are absolutely critical, and it's absolutely critical to have a good website, a professional, modern looking website. The website is your public face. It is the first thing that people see about you, you being the company. People's habits are that. If I'm going to go look at if I'm even going to buy a product, sometimes I'll just go on their website. What is their website like? Or especially if you're going to buy a large quantity, put yourself in the distributor chair. If you're going to buy a large quantity of this supplier's widgets, you want to okay, well, what's their public face like? The distributor is representing the company, and whether they present the company electronically or at the storefront or both, um, the company's website is the public face. And we all have, I stand guilty of this as well. If I see a company and it has an old dated looking website, that doesn't reflect very well on them. I mean, yeah, okay, they can be a viable company, but if their website looks dated, what does that say about their business practices? Um, do they take care of their customers? If they can't be bothered with having a decent website, what are they prioritizing here? So, just as a public face, it's absolutely critical. And look at your own individual habits. I'm sure that many of us have bought things online, and we want to look not only at reviews, but we want to check out what that company is like. So yes, having a website is absolutely critical.
Hmm. I definitely agree with you, Miguel. And do you think it's important that the website is in different languages?
I recommend having a flag so that that's in different languages. So one can have their homepage in English, and you could have a little flag or two up on the side, which you can click on, and then you would get Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, whatever translation of the website. That's okay, and it's easier to do that now than it was even 3 years ago. So yes, I do recommend that, especially if you're looking to go to a target country. If you want to market to a French-speaking country, it's worthwhile putting in a French, at least a splash page, up there on your website that people can refer to.
I know, and I've heard that there are some tools now where you can put on, on your webpage and it translated in many languages. That does it simultaneously. The translation might not be perfect,
Right.
but at least as a temporary scenario to at least offer the website in many languages. So, do you think that's a good idea to do that?
I would I would always defer to a professional translator, rather than going on Google or some other instant translation site. And that's, nothing against those platforms. However, if you go to a professional translator, they can pick up on some nuances, and especially if you're in a technical field, sometimes these words may not be translated correctly. Rather than going through an algorithm, you can, if you go through a professional translator, you get the actual the actual phrase. So it's worthwhile investing in a translator. And you may want to also take a look and see what a similar website looks like in, say, France. I mean, I mentioned marketing to Francophone countries. Okay, let's take a look at some French websites. So if you're selling automotive parts, well, how do French automotive websites look like? And maybe you can tailor your website to mimic what's going on over there. So it has a common presentation. And another thing about translations is that sentences can be longer or they can be shorter, depending on the language. And so it's how you position your images, how you position the words on a website. It's not always a direct translation. You may need to tailor it a little bit to that country.
Great. Thank you for your input, Miguel. I have another couple of more questions for you. I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but you're doing such a great job, and I know you have a lot of experience working with businesses, so it's always so valuable to get your input. So we talked about websites, we talked about trade shows. One other thing I'd like to talk about briefly is about trade missions. And what is your take on an outbound trade mission, and when do you feel a company is ready to participate on an outbound
Trade missions are fantastic ways to get to a new region, to a new country. But realize you're going there as a group. So it's not just you alone. You're going with a bunch of other companies. So the individual attention may not be as encompassing as if you were to do this on your own. Having said that, trade missions tend to be more cost effective than doing it alone. The trade missions also, when you sign up for one, there's a vetting process. They will usually take you if you're already selling in the United States. What is your market like here in the US? And importantly, they want to make sure that they can match you up with potential buyers. If they don't have that confidence, if they don't feel that they can do it, you will not be accepted on a trade mission. So it's it's very worthwhile looking at them. But I would say that consider them if you already have a sizable domestic market, and they would work out fantastic for you. Um, Enterprise Florida has a number of trade missions, and I know with Broward they do. Check out, look to see where they are going if it's a region of the world that you're interested in.
And we talked about sometimes you have to modify your product packaging, maybe even your product to enter a new market. When it comes to product packaging, I don't know if there's some resources on export.gov. Where can a company go look to find educational resources, or what type of experts do they have to talk to in order to modify their product packaging?
Um, you could go to one. You could go to us, and we can give some ideas as to what needs to be changed. For instance, I gave the example earlier of going to 220 volts versus 110. Um, but there's also other things like sometimes a composition has to uh, be different. So, for example, if somebody is selling uh, supplements, they may have to go through the equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration in this country to get it passed. And they can tell you what is needed, what labeling requirements are needed. Um, so I like the Dominican Republic has their equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration, and one would have to go through those guys, the Dominican entity. The name escapes me right now, but I know they exist, and they can tell the exporter what they need to meet. Um, so again, also with Canada, you need to have it in 2 languages. But when you work with us, we can tell you, okay, these are the labeling requirements that a country has. You could also look at the country commercial guides, and sometimes they have that information right there as to, okay, what are the labeling requirements there. One way to go about doing this too is to have it labeled abroad. So you're making the product here in the United States, you're exporting it, but you can also do the labeling abroad. Let the agent, let the distributor do the labeling on your behalf, especially if you're looking at like a third party supplier. So some distributors putting their hand sanitizer, their own label on it, but the hand sanitizer is coming from the United States.
Thank you. That's a very good idea. I haven't thought about it, to go and ask the agent or the distributor abroad to definitely give advice on packaging and maybe finding a packaging company there, labeling company. So that's very good. One last question. I promise this is our last question for you. What have you noticed during the pandemic? Has there been any changes? I know in healthcare you had the PPP products, but is there anything that you've noticed during the pandemic or COVID that has affected exporting? Miguel, can you hear us?
Um,
I know there's a bit.
what's happened is economies have contracted, and it depends on what degrees. Yes, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so the economies have. Let me call, okay, thank you. So some economies have contracted, but it also depends on what kind of products people are looking to sell overseas. So if somebody is involved in healthcare or not healthcare, I'm sorry, hair care, shampoos, conditioners, things of that nature, it's difficult to find a market right now in, say, Canada, because hair salons in Canada have been closed. They've been on lockdown. So they're operating at limited capacity. And when you have that, people are simply not buying because the consumer base is just not there. Um, and so it depends on the products that you're looking to sell. Some have been more impacted than others. What has also affected us is I mentioned earlier in the presentation that it is much better to meet the person face to face. In person, you see them, and that's changed. Now we're doing things more virtually, and yet there's a hesitancy still to purchase large order products from somebody you've only met virtually. So that is a bit of a challenge. And once things return to a normal, whenever that may be, um, I suspect that people will be traveling and meeting with their counterparts. But I would say it's been industry specific, like the hair care, again, shampoos, conditioners have been really impacted. Big ticket items have also been impacted, um, because, again, people want to see somebody in person rather than virtually. The habits are still there.
Well, on that note, thank you so much, Miguel. I mean, not only you gave out a great presentation that was very useful, some useful tips, and then thanks again to for your participation today and for answering those candid questions on interview. Any last words of advice or closing words? After that, I'm gonna share a few more information with the audience, but just wanted to see if you have any last words or last tips for the audience.
Sure. Uh, Go for it. Let's talk. Let's see what your product is, what you're doing here, and let's see about getting you overseas. There's nothing wrong with asking a question. Let's take a look, and let's see where we can go. Um, I'd be happy to speak with anybody who's export minded, and I can refer them to the right trade specialists, if you're in, say, aviation or automotive, or if you're in healthcare. We'll talk. This is how things start. It starts with a conversation, and let's see where we can go with this.
Mm, I agree with Miguel. It's definitely good to start talking to us, to the government agencies and all the resources out there. You'll meet some of our other partners in the next sessions. And that's a good way to start, in terms of becoming export ready, getting the right education, familiarizing yourself. There's some great tools like the country commercial guides and those types of educational webinars or seminars that can help companies get started. So, again, on that note, thank you so much, Miguel, for being part of this. I know every
Thank
year you're
you.
a full program, and we really appreciate you having and your valuable information. You did a great job in presenting the information very clearly, and this webinar is going to be available pretty much forever on our website as long as they let us have it there. So I know that a lot of people will benefit from the information you shared, and we look forward to having you again as part of our programs here at Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business. What I'd like to tell our audience is that this is a three-part series, as I mentioned earlier, and it's usually from 2 to 5 p.m. But today we only had one speaker, so we're going to end a little bit early. We're going to end probably just before 4 p.m. It's about 3:45 now. But for the last few minutes, I just want to share a few information about the conference coming up because we're right into conference mode and we're very excited for FITSE on November 17 and 18. So I'm going to share my screen again and talk to you a little bit about our conference. Before I do so, I just want to talk about our office in a few words. The Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business. You see behind me, I have a stand-up banner that says Your Business Connection. We really are the agency here for Broward County that's in charge of economic development, but we also want to be your business connection. So we have two sections. We have the small business section, and we have the economic development section where I sit. But on the small business section, as I mentioned in some of our other webinars, if you're looking to sell your products and services to the county government or one of our 31 municipalities, you can definitely become a vendor with the county. There's a vendor registration program under the purchasing division, but under our office, we have the certification program, the small business certification programs. And this is to give more participation goals for local small business into the government bids, the government contracts. The government buys millions of dollars in products and services. For example, we're renovating now the convention center where we're going to have FITSE, and we have our prime contractor, Balfour Beatty, but there's definitely opportunities for subcontracting, for constructions, for providing to the convention center. This is just an example. The county also owns Port Everglade, the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport, but the county buys pretty much so many types of products and services, from pens to construction services to catering, marketing services. So definitely, if you're looking at our website, broward.org/econdev, and that's econdev is for economic development. So it's ECONDEV. On our website, you can find out a lot of information about the Small Business Certification Program. Now, I'm sitting on the economic development side, and on the economic development side, it's about business attraction, business retention. And business attraction is about bringing new businesses here to Broward County to create more jobs and bring more capital investment. And we do partner with a public-private public-private partner called the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, and they help us promote our area, market our area as the best place to open your business, and they also help us to attract businesses in the targeted sector. We've been talking throughout this webinar about some target sectors that the state want to attract here. Traditionally, Florida has been known for agriculture, especially with the citrus, and for tourism. But for a few years now, the state has been attracting growing industries such as the life science sector, which includes pharmaceutical and biotechnology, aviation and aerospace, marine industries, technology, manufacturing, headquarters initiatives, certain professional services, clean tech. So these are some examples of targeted sectors, and the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, they do a great job in helping us attract these businesses here to Broward County and to South Florida. So we can definitely help if you're an international business listening and you want to relocate or expand your business here. We can help with site location, expedited permitting, workforce development, and other services. There's manufacturing tax abatement, there's other incentive program. So feel free to contact our office and we'll work in collaboration with the Alliance to help you bring your business here the easiest way, the fastest way, and to find success here. Also, in the economic development section, we have an entrepreneurship program. So some of you might be listening and you're like, oh, well, I'm just starting a business right now. Can I get assistance? Well, my colleague has partnered with the Kaufman Institute, and they do the Fast Track program, which can help you get your business started quickly and also how to do a business plan. In addition to that, we have another specialist here that takes care of special zones. So you might be located in a special zone within the county, which has benefits that you weren't aware of. And last but not least, I'm in charge of export promotion. So that's why we're doing this educational program today. My program ranges in educational workshops, seminars, and webinars, such as we're doing now during COVID time, as well as the conference, and one-on-one counseling. So if you're located in Broward County, you're eligible for having one-on-one counseling with our office on exporting. And we know that exporting doesn't end there. I know that importing is as well important. So if you're looking to import, you can also contact us. And we have a few resources and tools for importing, even though we don't have a dedicated assistance program, but we can still help you, point you in the right direction. And on that note, I'm going to share my screen because I want to talk about the Florida International Trade and Cultural Expo and give you some important updates. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Great. So right here, we're going to visit the FitseExpo.com website that I mentioned earlier. And I wanted to show you that we have some new confirmed dignitaries to date, which I'm excited to announce. We have the former president of Costa Rica, Luis Guillermo Solis Rivera. We also have the former president of Jorge Quiroga from Bolivia. We have a former president of Guatemala, Vinicio Cerezo. We have also a new former president, which is not listed here, but we're going to list shortly, His Excellency Luis Alberto Lacalle, former president of Uruguay. And actually, I'm waiting on answer on 3 other former presidents to be confirmed, including, I believe, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, and possibly Carlos Mesa from Guatemala as well. So it's very exciting because, these former presidents, they've done really significant things for their country. Some of them have done like programs which include free trade agreements with the United States and other countries, which we're going to have a panel on the presidential leaders, and you'll hear all about what they've done and also build a relationship with them, which is great, a great gateway to their country. In addition to former presidents, we've also invited some ministers, parliamentarians, some mayors from different countries, which are listed here. I'm excited to have the former minister, it's not written here, but she was also the former minister of immigration for Canada, and she's right now in the parliament, the standing chair for the International Trade Committee, which is pretty big. We also have the Minister of Labor from Nigeria, the Minister of the Blue Economy and Civil Aviation for Belize, our own Secretary of Commerce, which is also the CEO of Enterprise Florida, Jamal Soul. We also have the Mayor of Constanta, which is a sister city for Fort Lauderdale, the Mayor of San Juan de Rio Seco from Colombia, the Mayor of Paute from Ecuador. I've just heard that another sister city confirmed, the Mayor of São Sebastião, Brazil. And then I was mentioning the delegation from Dubai, and we have Honorable Dawood El Shazawi, and he's going to be coming from UAE and bringing a delegation, and he organizes an event similar to FITSE with 17,000 people. So we're very excited to have these special guests. But this is just the beginning, because we're going to have a lot of special dignitaries. As you can see also on our website, you can note some of our past dignitaries that we've had in the past. We've had many. And great place to network. FITSE, really a gateway to networking with other countries. In addition to that, under the participating countries, you can find there, we're going to update soon the 2021, which are going to be pretty similar. This year, we're expecting 60 countries as well represented. And if you scroll down, you're going to see some of the past countries that were in 2019 and who participated. For example, in San Lucia, we had the Consul General. In Peru, we had the Trade Commission. So in Mexico, we had a business delegation. So you could see what type of delegation or representation is participating from a foreign country. What I also wanted to show you is at the top of the page, you can register here for general admission. So general admission is free. So we encourage you to register today. In addition, in this section right here, you can see some of our past interviews on NBC, Telemundo, some coverage we had there from South Florida Business Journal, and the videos from 2019 and the photos. So you can watch that and see what happened. It's going to be obviously at the convention center, which is being renovated right now, but the rooms where we were are going to be ready. As a matter of fact, the convention center is going to be ready for the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show, another great trade show that is the largest in the world. That's going to happen at the end of October. Another thing I'd like to bring your attention to is the event agenda, which we're going to update soon. We're going to have a link to the detailed agenda very soon. But in the meantime, you could look at some of the panels we're going to have, the 11 steps to exporting that I mentioned before. The big event is the grand opening ceremony. Do not miss the grand opening ceremony. That's where everybody's going to be there. It's going to be like a wow event. And there's a breakfast served before. And the World Expo is going to open around that time. And then there's going to be some educational workshops, but also doing business with the world. I mentioned before the World Leaders Panel for the former presidents, which is going to be great this year because I think I'm going to have 6 former presidents on that panel. So we're very excited. Moderated by Sabina Kovo, who's from Telemundo. So it's going to be very interesting and very interesting panel right there. And then we're going to do the Doing Business with the World series. We're going to have Latin America. I'm going to have a new panel today. This time, that's going to be Latin America, but then there's going to be Canada and Mexico for the free trade agreement. And then doing business with the Caribbean. The next day, we have another opening ceremony. The second day opening ceremony is going to be very interesting as well. We're partnering with a think tank in Washington, D.C., and they're going to bring big guests from D.C., so not to be missed. And then we're also going to have doing business with the world, Europe, Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. And then during lunchtime, that's where you go network in the World Expo room. So you meet all the exhibitors. And then we have the how to import to the United States. Here is interesting because we're inviting, you're going to meet her in session 2 of this webinar. Jennifer Diaz is our organizer for the how to import panel, and she invites her contacts from the U.S. Customs, FDA, Consumer Protection, some big agencies that are really difficult to meet usually, but you can meet them at FITSE and ask them questions, which is amazing, or meet with them. And then we have the wonderful American and International Buyers panel, and in the past, we've had Walmart, Sam's Club, Royal Caribbean, the big government buyers, the public school buyers. So definitely worth attending. And then we have a meet and greet with those buyers. And then we have a speed matchmaking with the country representatives, which is great. And we're going to list the countries that are participating. And also, as part of your general admission, you get to participate in the 2 evening receptions, which are 5 to 7 p.m. And the first one is to be going to be honoring the former presidents visiting that I mentioned before. And the last one, we're looking to do a team on Ecuador. So we've had a lot of activities this year with Ecuador, so it's going to be our featured country at the closing reception. Here is where you register as an exhibitor. So if you're a local company listening, you can register as a local exhibitor. We're almost sold out for the early bird rate. We already have 46 tables sold, and as I mentioned before, the first 50 tables are going to be at $50, and then the price is going to go up to $100. And that includes a 6-foot table with a tablecloth and 2 chairs. You're going to be listed in the exhibitor map. Of course, it's the general admission is included. Electricity is not included, but you can order that early on. And then also we're going to have a form if you want to give out food samples. You just have to get authorization for this form by the convention center. So here's where you register for the local exhibitors. Now, if you're an international company listening, or you know any international companies that want to fly in, if we receive a copy of your flight itinerary or flight ticket by October 20th, you can start registering as an international exhibitor, and you're going to get this table for free at no charge. So definitely a great package to attract international companies. And I know I already have a lot of delegations that are participated, so we're very excited. And basically, so that's for the exhibitors. And so please rush because those tables are going away very quickly. And we also have sponsorship opportunities, which are listed here. We already found our world sponsor, FPNL. But if you want to speak before a panel, you could be a local sponsor. And also there's other types of sponsorships available to you. So, or you could sponsor one of the 2 receptions organized by our partner entities. Then this is again for the registration, but the registration link is up there at the top of the page. Then also what I'd like to show you is here we're going to list when we have the speed matchmaking countries will be listed here. If some of you are traveling, we have the Hilton Fort Lauderdale Marina, which is our official hotel. And then in addition to that, we're looking to secure, hopefully, our official airline very soon. So we'll make an announcement on our website. And then if you're media listening, we love to partner with you. Deanna McCall is our CRO manager, and she'll be very happy to speak with you to partner as a media. And we also have an art exhibit because we're partnering with the cultural division. As every year, there's a call to artists. So there's a form if you want to participate. The deadline is approaching soon, October 3rd. So we encourage you to participate. And then we're going to have a mobile app. So we'll put soon the link on how you can download the mobile app, and you can interact during the event and a little bit prior and after the event on the mobile app. So we're very excited. This is our world sponsor. We also have some other sponsors coming soon that we're going to update on our website. But we invite everybody to participate. This is really a conference for everyone. And we hope to see you there. So on that note, I'm excited to talk to you about session 2 and session 3 of, oops, sorry, here, I'm going to go back to stop sharing. Wonderful. And session 2 of this Export Readiness Seminar is going to be next week on September 20th. Don't forget to tune in at 2 p.m. And you're going to hear from for the import regulations. You're going to hear from Jennifer Diaz, who's doing our out the import panel, but she's going to talk also on an exporting standpoint, the U.S. control regulation, the foreign regulations. We're also going to talk about logistics with Port Everglades and logistic experts. We're going to teach you what's an HS code, what's an Incoterm, all the basics you need to know for logistics. And then on September 22, we're going to cover the methods of payments and as well export financing. So on that note, thank you to all of you who've joined us today. We hope you've enjoyed the first part of our export readiness seminar, and I look forward to seeing you next week at part 2. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye, everyone.